Yes, sir, it's the GI Journal again, your radio newspaper of the AEF, the paper that prints all your contributions from overseas. Men, on the target range, a bull is a clean hit. Well, here's a man who, while he may not be a hit, is definitely a lot of bull. Your original editor-in-chief, Kay Kaiser.
Well, hiya, men. Hiya, well. Say, men, it's sure a man-sized help and a pleasure being your editor again. This is your 5-star final, and standing by are your 5-star reporters. So then, of course, our star outside reporter, Professor Colonna, who ought to be calling in with a big story right now. Hello, city desk.
Hello, desk. This is Colonna. I'm overseas with the ground troops. We're on a forced march.
A forced march? Really?
Yes, and we're carrying full field packs and everything. We're really loaded.
Colonna.
Of course, some of us are loaded more than the others.
This one is from
Digital 410 Productions proudly presents the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast with your hosts Dodd Abernathy, Jeff Copsetta, and Henry Sledge.
We interrupt this program to bring to you your normally scheduled program, that is the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast, your favorite World War II based podcast. And that is us. And this is Jeff. This is Henry. And our guest for tonight is Mr. Steven, mystery middle name. How are you guys doing tonight?
Pretty good. Thanks for having us on again.
Well, you guys have to be here. Steven's the one I'm having on. You guys are required. You're enlisted. You're on the roster.
Have to be here.
Unless you go AWOL, and I got to send out some half-assed WTSP MP who has a weird limp to track you down. You're stuck here. You're here for the duration.
Jeff forced me to be here.
Yep. See, Jeff's our half-ass MP with a weird limp until we can afford another one with a limp on the other side. And by the way,
check that box.
Mr. Paul, I know you're listening to the show, and you told me that you've almost called in 2 or 3 times, but you're a little too scared, which concerns me. So if you guys are watching this on the live stream and you want to give us a call and talk to us, give us a call at 239-299-3380. I was at an event this weekend up in, I was going to say Bushnell. That's a different event. Up in Paris, Florida, and I actually had a couple of guys say, I listen to your podcast when I'm at work. I watch the live stream when I'm doing paperwork. And so, every once in a while, we're kind of talking about this on the OG5 podcast we just did a quick snippet of. It's like, sometimes, you kind of wonder, obviously if you look at your numbers, but you're like, is anybody listening? And then the times that you're actually out at an event or somewhere and someone says, I listened to the show. It's like, oh, you're the guy. I was at an event like 2 years ago, and I just met somebody for the first person, and he, for the first time, was up in at a Georgia event, and he was talking to one of his friends. He's like, you recognize that voice? He's like, huh? He's like, that's the guy I forced you to listen to when we were driving for 4 hours. And so it's nice when you have the opportunity to meet some people, but it's cold here in Florida. I think it's like 68 degrees. How are you all doing with the new winter upon us weather change?
Well, we had winter about 2 weeks ago on a Tuesday. It's 77 degrees today.
Yeah, because you were posting like photos like out in the snow. It was like, where are you at?
Oh yeah, that was the Snowmageddon last when was that, February?
Yeah,
it was February.
Steven gets extra points for wearing the WTSP t-shirt. Shout out to you.
Thank you.
To do that too.
What's that, Steve? You broke up a little bit.
Oh no, I said thank you for sending me a replacement.
Oh yeah, you're the one. Yeah, our vendor changed their way of doing things. And funny thing is, when Jeff sent me that photo, I saw a guy on TikTok who was using the same vendor, and he was complaining that some of their shirts were having issues. But luckily for us, your that shirt that happened to was the only one that I either know of that happened to, or the only one that they reached out and touched us and said that that it was an issue. I want to play something I recorded here real quick because I'm still reading September Hope, and I was bringing this up at the event I was at this weekend because we were doing the Von Kessinger Express, and there's actually it was funny, a lot of people there in Airborne, and not a single 101st. It was almost like someone sent out a memo, which no one did, but everybody there had an 82nd Airborne patch on their sleeve. But I was reading this in September Hope, and this is something I didn't know, and it'd be interesting if you guys did. As with the previous day's mission, few of the glider pilots had trained co-pilots with them. They simply chose a competent-looking airborne soldier put them in the right seat, and quickly briefed them on how to fly the glider. Aboard one Waco, Lieutenant James Fox, a glider pilot in the 441st Troop Carrier Group, selected a sergeant who was in charge of the bazooka team. The aircraft was loaded with a jeep and accompanying supplies. "There's nothing to it," he told the skeptical sergeant. "It's just like driving a truck." Private Ralph Smith, a sniper with the 101st Airborne Division, had been chosen by his commander to accompany the jeep and its driver to landing zone W. As paratroopers, Smith and the driver were already leery of riding in the rickety glider. As they flew along, the pilot turned and dispensed complicated instructions on how to land the Waco if he got hit. Smith and the jeep drivers glanced at each other apprehensively and then looked at the pilot. "Sir, you can do all three of us a big favor," the jeep driver said. "Don't get hit." This has been an excerpt from September Hope, The American Side of a Bridge Too Far by John C. McManus. So I was amazed to find out. Now, I don't know if this is simply an Operation Market Garden thing because this is the biggest use of gliders at all time, and so maybe they took their trained co-pilots and made them pilots. But the fact that you're in the air, this wasn't discussed on the ground, but you're in the air in a glider, and the pilot turns around and says, "You look squared away. Come here. Let me teach you something. And if I die, here's how you land this thing." And by the way, something else I didn't know about gliders, they had steering wheels like a tractor. It wasn't an aileron and a stick. It was literally flying with a steering wheel, and I guess you could just slide the whole damn thing over to the passenger seat. And, I mean, could you imagine being that guy, Jeff? You're sitting behind me.
The first thing that comes to mind is, did they turn around and pick somebody, or did they go, "Hey, I need a volunteer"?
No,
Never volunteer.
Well, I think that's why they didn't ask for volunteers. I think they literally said, "I like the way you have your collar on, or your helmet's at a jaunty tilt. Get up here." And it's just insane. And there was actually, and according to the book, there's a lot of the guys who were just flying like heavy artillery and jeeps. They were in there by themselves, and they said, but with all the downdraft and updraft and crossdraft from all the planes up there, by the time they got on the ground, they were just physically exhausted from fighting that steering wheel and trying to keep their glider level so it didn't get in the way of the plane above them or below them or to the left and right. And I guess the amount of exertion put forth on those pilots was insane.
Yeah, and it kind of reminds me of towards the end of the war, the air war in Europe, when it just wasn't worth it to have that extensive bombardier training for, when we're sending over hundreds and hundreds of bombers to bomb Europe. Just get an enlisted guy that can go click with a toggle and drop the bombs, open the bomb bays and drop the bombs when the group leader or the the squadron leader, whatever that lead bombardier, whenever he drops them, you drop them.
Did they start doing that?
Well, they started doing that, I think, in 1944, I want to say. But yeah, they were called toggliers.
Wow.
And they were simply, this is when they were starting to use the Mickey device where they would remove the ball turret, put the radar dome there. That when we were using radar to bomb through heavy smoke screens, or then weather wasn't as much a factor over the target. But yeah, it wasn't worth it to be training these guys to be bombardiers when, if the lead bombardier drops the bombs, hey, you flip the switch.
But what happens if the lead bomber gets shot out of the sky? Do they have a redundancy
you're gonna
system?
Have your contingency plans, and they may take a couple echelons and combine into one, or fly, because they were typically in a 3 or 4 plane group.
Yeah.
So if one loses, somebody else is going to fill in. They're going to have more than one guy, but I would say probably one out of every 3 or 4 bombers only had the bombardier. So if you've got 300 bombers up there in the air, you probably only got 100 trained bombardiers, because there's just no need to have 300 bombardiers in the air, when you all have the same target. So kind of the similar instance where, hey, you look like you could do this. We don't need to train people and all that other stuff. It's, hey, you know.
Well, the crazy thing is, and one of the complaints that the glider rider NCOs had was the glider pilot's job was to get them from point A to point B. Once that glider's on the ground, they were not trained in infantry soldiering. They were trained by the Army Air Corps to fly that glider. They had, basic boot camp marksmanship, but they did not go on to do infantry training, field tactics. Their job was to land the glider and make their way back to get taken back to wherever their kickoff point was. And in the case of Operation Market Garden, the NCOs are complaining because now you got 200-300 of these guys out there who aren't willing to do shit. And a lot of them end up getting put on guard duty when they start, getting all these Germans. But a lot of them weren't even willing to and since they're technically a part of the Army Air Corps, the airborne NCOs had no authoritative power over them. So they didn't have to listen to them if they didn't want to. Some of them obviously picked up a rifle in a survival situation, but once things died down, it was like, see you later. And they just started walking the other direction.
I just finished McManus's book, Americans at D-Day, and he talks a little bit about the glider corps, but I actually did not know that, but I'd kind of wondered about that. Just, what were these guys supposed to, because, they really weren't rated pilots.
They were basically trained to fly that glider. And when you're the NCO of 82nd Airborne or 101st, and then you find out that the British equivalent to the glider pilots were cross-trained, and so their job was to land and then be a fighting man, not to retreat and wait for the next mission. They're like, why aren't we cross-training these guys? But Army Air Corps wasn't down for the cause. And that book, September Hope, has got me so interested in the whole glider side of it and learning more about them as well as the Operation Market Garden. This book just came in the mail today. I haven't even cracked it open yet. It's called 4 Hours of Fury. And because I was looking online for some more 82nd Airborne and glider stories, this is the untold story of World War II's largest airborne invasion and the final push into Nazi Germany by James M. Fenelon. So I'll be reading this here shortly. And then the book that I actually ordered during the last episode finally showed up, which is the Peleliu Tragic Triumph, The Untold Stories of the Pacific War's Forgotten Battle by Bill D. Ross. And so these will be the next two books I'm reading after I finish up September Hope. But I really want to learn more about the glider side because you don't hear a lot of people, talking about in the living history world. They're kind of like the unspoken word of the airborne. And from according to the statistics in September Hope, a majority of the airborne troops on the ground were actually glider riders. There was more of them than were jumping out of the planes.
Really?
Yeah, at least during Operation Market Garden, at least. Yeah.
Huh.
There was a lot.
Well, even in further operations, especially the jump over the Rhine, C-47s were carrying two Waco gliders at the same time, being towed right behind them. So inherently, instead of just training all these troops ready to jump out of a plane, they've been stuffing guys in the back of gliders. Even same thing with the British, too, with their gliders as well. Everything in tow, two right behind them.
And it's amazing, and Steve sounds like he knows a little bit on the subject, too. It's amazing to think that these wood and canvas gliders had enough updraft to carry jeeps and large artillery pieces. It's like you would think, okay, we can fit, 12, 15 guys in there at 130 pounds apiece, but then they're putting jeeps and artillery pieces in there. And in that book, they were saying these things are so flimsy that one of them, when landed during Operation Market Garden, landed in like a beet field or a potato field, and the potatoes started coming up through the cardboard bottom of the floor. And like guys were getting hit with these potatoes, and one of them, the Jeep literally fell through the floor and survived. But these things were such rickety canvas. It's just insane to think of the amount of weight that their wings were able to support and to get out there.
Well, so I think this is a perfect opportunity. Steve's already chimed in a little bit, but we didn't really give him the introduction that he deserves as our special guest tonight. He mentioned earlier that I forced him to be on here, and that's probably half true. Steve's become a really good buddy of mine. He's probably one of the best reenactors that I probably have ever met and I say that because he really knows his stuff. He's not out to dress up and look cool. The guy really knows his stuff. He's taught me so much. I didn't know how much I didn't know until I met Steve. And, I think of him like my stunt double. He's a little bit tougher than me, not quite as good looking. He's like a good stunt double for me. And, but so if anybody just got real excited about reenacting with some of the stuff that Don was talking about, I think Steve could really give us a firsthand look on what it's like being an airborne reenactor, not walking around with an airborne patch on your sleeve, but actually going through the motions. Steve, can you enlighten some of our listeners on just some of the experiences that you've had as an airborne reenactor, some of the things that you're responsible for, and maybe talk a little bit about your recent trip to Oklahoma that you've had here just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah. So one of the groups that I'm associated with, and I have been for actually a little over 10 years now, is the World War II Airborne Demonstration Team, located up in Frederick, Oklahoma. We actually are based out of an old Army Air Corps base where they used to train B-25 pilots, and we have 2 planes of our own. We have a DC-3 and a C-47. Both are combat vets. One was owned by us, and then the other was owned by the British, and have seen combat in D-Day, Market Garden, and so on operations. But as we come together, the whole group is not just, a bunch of reenactors. You have like former service members, current service members, and people from all walks of life. And we all come together for this one cause of, remember, honor, serve, where we're trying to carry on the memory and the deeds of those that came before us, especially during World War II, during airborne operations. And that's not just the paratroopers, but it's the pilots, all the support people, and everyone that was able to help us win the fight. But we do actually jump out of C-47s using more modern day parachutes because the FAA requires us to. But, a good friend of mine, he actually helps train a lot of the students that come in, and the majority of them are reenactors. And then we do have those couple that, it's a bucket list item. And my buddy, John Tehan, he's the drill sergeant there. He runs the guys through their days, gets them to their classes, wakes them up, checks their bumps out. But he says to all of them that this is where reenacting stops being fun. And what he's getting at is, you have to be physically fit going through this course, because you have to carry your load. You have to be able to get up on a platform, jump off of it, do your PLFs, put on the gear, sit in it for hours on end, getting a hanging harness, how to get yourself out of the issues, and then actually propel yourself out of the aircraft and get into a correct body position.
And that participation at a living history event, it just brings it to a whole new level. I had the luxury, about 2 years ago, we had an air show, and it was another group does the same thing. We kind of positioned ourselves as living historians out in the field where we're hidden from view, and they would come in and do the jump. Obviously, when they do the jump, they got to tend to all their gear, so they can't participate, but we kind of set it up so that once they made the jump, it looked like we were them coming into the battle. But it just brings a whole new level, and it's so damn cool, especially as a living historian, to see people doing a static line jump and seeing those 12 guys come out of those planes, and it's amazing. And I'll give you credit, man. You got some guts, because I talked to them and I found out how relatively affordable that training and participating with them was. But I got to thinking, and it's like, if I was 18 or 20, but it's like, now I'm 38. My parents are in a business. I got a kid. I got a lot more I'm responsible for now. And there's slight risk to it. But in the back of your head, all your bravado goes out the window. When it's just you and your friends sitting around drinking, let's go skydiving. But then when it's actually someone's seriously considering it, you start to have a gut check times, like, would I really be able to do the jump? And so credit to you guys, and not only in preserving history, but actually doing the deed and jumping out the planes, man.
Well, and the big part about our group, too, is that the airborne contingent is just one item that we bring to shows. What you don't see is the background. So the guys that work on the planes are ground crews. I work a lot on the ground crews itself, on the safety. I run the drop zone most of the time. Every once in a while, I'll get to jump out of the plane myself. But, there are tons of support functions that come along with guys just jumping out of the planes. And we invite everyone down that we can. I mean, currently right now, the head of education down at the Infantry Museum at Fort Benning, Chris Lewis, he's not able to participate jump operations right now because he just had surgery on his foot. But he came out and he just wanted to be a part of the group, be a part of the history, because the greatest part about being there is that we all regress back to our younger selves where we're 20, 21 years old. But we're all a bunch of nerds. We all want to talk about World War II stuff. We want to share it. And the best part, too, is that I even learned there, too, because, I've got guys that, that turn your M42s, what At the Front or Man the Line makes, and make them look like an actual set of M42s using original canvas and that paratroopers actually used during either, D-Day or Market Garden. So, and I think it would be an enjoyable experience for you just to come out.
Absolutely. And we were kind of talking about this weekend at the event I was at. Guy showed up. He's been doing it for years. I've never come across him, at least in my time. But instantaneously, kind of like when Henry joined the show, we hit it off perfectly. And the guy said, one of his favorite things about going out to a Living History weekend is you'll meet somebody you've never met in your life, but because you all have the same passion for the same topic, you like instantly, you may not become best friends, but you'll have a conversation and at least enjoy each other's company. And like you said, you don't really have that sort of interface with people, with maybe exception of, he was pointing out a few items, a few things like, maybe a country club, or apparently he's a whiskey guy, he said, or down at this distillery and things like that. But it's so true. And there's people I've known for 9 years that I only see them during reenacting events because they live in Georgia or Alabama or throughout Florida. And, you see them and it's like, oh, you feel like you just saw them last week. And that's one of my other favorite things is it's like you're getting out of the house, you're sleeping on the hard ground for 2 days. The entire time I was out there, I only pulled my phone out to record stuff or pull my GoPros out. I came back and Carrie was talking about that concert where 8 people died. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, you didn't hear about that? I was like, I spent 2 days in 1944. I have no idea what's going on. I mean, I'm literally so out of the loop. I didn't know that 8 people died at a concert until like this afternoon. And so it's just so nice to just step away and just get outside and just be around like-minded people talking about something we all have a passion for.
Oh, I absolutely agree with you. And, I just came back from our October jump school, spent 2 weeks up there. Same thing. I basically turned off my phone except for to, take some pictures if I did or receive pictures. But, just get that full immersion and walk away from everything. What other time, during the year do I get a chance to just ride around in World War II vehicles and jump out of planes and just hang out in a hangar and be with my friends who, we all enjoy World War II. And it's not just the airborne stuff, but all types of the history that became part of World War II.
If Jeff and Henry don't mind, I want to kind of give you the classic WTSP treatment, and that is the first time we have someone on. Let's go back a little bit. Give us a little, where you're from, where you grew up, and actually how you got bit by the history bug, and what got you from there to here today, if you don't mind giving us like the Cliff Notes version.
Well, not a problem. I actually grew up all over, military family, so, you name the states, I've been there, but one of the main places I did set down a lot of roots in was in Delaware. And, I always loved history because my dad, he would always take me to museums. And, we had local museums, especially the Dover Air Force Base Air Mobility Museum. I actually started doing plane restoration there. But one place that actually really started to get into reenacting was this coastal artillery battery called Fort Miles. And, we would do pre-World War II and World War II style get-ups, and we would actually have the gun batteries up and running. We would learn the history behind everything and actually have the base, for the most part, fully manned, where guys are running the guns up in the towers, communicating with each other, the spotlights. And then, of course, too, that just carried on where I got involved with the guys with who do the 45th in Company K up in Pennsylvania. Started doing Reading Air Show, and then, of course, to Fort Indiantown Gap.
I was going to ask you if you ever did FIG before it got canceled.
I did FIG back in the day when it was fun.
Yeah, I knew the guys who were there, because a lot of my Florida guys, they would go every year, and they were there the last year, and I got the skinny on why it got canceled, and that's a damn shame. But that was one I never got the opportunity to go to, because it got canceled probably 3 or 4 years after I got into the hobby.
Why did it get canceled, if you don't mind me asking?
The unofficial thing from what I heard, the scuttlebutt, if you will, there was a lot of things leading up to it. Certain things being left around that looked like realistic bombs that weren't picked up. So Fort Indiantown Gap is a operating base. And so after the weekend goes, a lot of times they'd find grenades or whatever laying around, and they'd have to treat them like they're real and make sure. But the end all be all from what I heard, and this is unofficial, this is just the scuttlebutt I heard in the community, it was there was a bad mortar accident. Guy damn near lost his hand, and it was just, they couldn't take the liability anymore. Things just got too out of control, and either he did lose his hand or damn near lost his hand, but damn near took his hand off. It had something to do with the mortar. And Steve,
that was the same story I heard as well.
Yeah, and so they're just like, look, we're an active military base, and we just can't take this liability anymore. And I from what I heard, it had been building up. I guess each year with the planning, it was like they're a little more and more reluctant to do it just because there was things going on that they just weren't down for. And then that was just like the last straw. I was like, no, it was fun while it ran, but no more. And it's completely understandable. I mean, that's a major incident to happen at an event.
Yeah.
So what is your, obviously the Air Corps stuff, but what's some of the other realms of expertise? Do you have a particular theater of operations that you're really into, or you do the gambit?
So I cover it all. You can ask Jeff. If you ask me to dress up as something, I can most likely put together something.
A whack?
But I do enjoy the European theater of operations. That is my favorite. Most of my family members during World War II did serve over in the European theater of operations. My grandfather, he was in the Pacific. He was a Seabee. He did all the island hopping with the Marines. But I just enjoy Europe a little bit more. And plus, too, when it starts getting cold out, I think more about Europe than I do, the Pacific.
That's completely understandable. Is that a typewriter in your foreground?
It is, yeah.
What kind of typewriter is that?
It is a Remington Model 1.
Nice. Yeah, Paul, who listens to the show, he actually, when he does his living history, he brings out a field table, has the typewriter and the whole gambit. That's kind of his little world that he gets into. But yeah.
Hey, Dom.
Yes.
Speaking of other listeners, I wanted to remind you, maybe this would be a good time now to mention, didn't we get a pretty cool shout out from a listener after last episode?
I need to get into production and make a mail call intro. But yes, mail call time via Facebook. If you guys want, you can email us at mailcall@WTSP.com or even info@WTSP.com. Or as this guy did, Mr. Roger Underwood, you can leave us a message on our Facebook page and either Jeff, Henry, or myself will get it. It says, "Hello, Don. I'm a recent, couple of months, listener, and I wanted to say hello and tell you guys that I like what you're doing, and I've been listening and re-listening. I have a connection with some GIs. My father was in the PTO, my uncle PTO, my cousin was in the ETO, grandfather and his brother were in World War I, and a few more. I just want to say thanks for what you guys are doing. You, Henry, and Jeff are really good together, and I like hearing about all the things you have got going on in the books you've been reading. I would ask my dad to tell me a story when I was a little kid. The really cool thing was I came across some footage of him on YouTube. It was only about 3 seconds, but I'm 99% sure it was the old man. He was part of the campaign in Manila and was at Santo Thomas internment camp. He's the guy with the steel pot, and he showed in the email, he had a screenshot of the video. He's the guy with the steel pot and the carbine, Mr. Roger Underwood. They said, I just thought I would share that with you. And I'd also share some of the affections I have with World War II history and all the things you guys do. Keep it up, Roger. And thanks so much for the nice, kind words and a very cool screenshot. It's not often that you see a picture of a family member on a YouTube video, well, with the exception of Henry there, but a friend of mine was actually down in Naples at the Florida Museum for the Holocaust, and I did an interview with them, probably episode 4 or 5, and her father was in 101st, and she actually saw a picture of him at one of the concentration camps in the background, and that was really blew her away to see. You wouldn't think that you're walking through a Holocaust museum and you see a picture of your father when he was part of the liberation of one of the concentration camps. So thank you, Roger, for the kind words. And as I said before, if you guys want to email us, send us an email at mailcall@WTSPWorldWar2.com or info@WTSPWorldWar2.com. You guys have any books you want to suggest or that you're currently reading?
Yeah, I've got a couple here. I think most of our listeners know that I've been been really reading heavy on the air war in Europe lately, which is, pretty normal for me. I go through my back and forth with the Pacific and the ETO like we probably all do, but I've had this book for a while, and I picked it up once. I read the first few pages, and I was like, no, that was a waste. I simply bought it because of the title, and it had a cool cover, The Boys in the B-17. And you can see here by Tech Sergeant James Lee Hutchinson. He goes by Hutch. So I thought, okay, this is a memoir. It's very obviously self-published. This is the third book he published. He's actually written 2 others called Through These Eyes and Bombs Away, which I have not read, but I just happened to pick this one up. And I'll tell you the reason I put it down was there was a couple obvious, like just printing errors, just, indents where there shouldn't have been, or a paragraph, just a sentence gets broken and it's like a new paragraph, whatever. Like, okay, I can kind of deal with some of that. But he referred to Yamamoto as a general instead of admiral.
God.
And that's when I was like, So I put it down. And then just recently, a few weeks ago, I said, man, I want to know what this guy's story is. Like, you know what? Who cares? Who cares about that stuff? Like, I don't want to be that guy, because I hate it when people are that guy. So why would I be that guy? Man, I picked it up and I read it. It was briefly. I mean, it was so quick. I probably finished this thing quicker than most any other book I've read, because I didn't want to put it down, because he does such a good job kind of giving you, he sets the tone chronologically at first. And I will say he kind of gets away from his own story, because he did come in late. He didn't get over there until autumn of 44, late, pretty much early winter, I guess you'd say, 44, 45. So his first missions weren't until November, December. In fact, I think his 10th mission was the day that the Germans broke out during the Bulge, December 16th of 44. So he didn't even fly a full complement. I think he only did about 20 combat missions out of the expected 35 at that time. So he was kind of late, but he was just, fresh, young kid. But it's really neat, because he tells enough of his own story to get you interested, and then he breaks away and he kind of sets the tone. What was going on in the airborne Europe before he got, like, what is he walking into? What was 1942, 43 like, to really set the tone? And then on top of that, he just kind of peppers in a story about a Medal of Honor recipient, or something from his bomb group 490th, something that the historian pulled from somebody else that served, or he'll pull from, I knew this guy, or he was in my Quonset hut, on another airplane, because, the enlisted guys, there was like 4 bomber crews per Quonset hut, for the enlisted guys. So it was somebody he knew of or played cards with that night, but didn't fly with, necessarily. So it does a really, really neat job just kind of putting it all together for you. And you learn a lot. I mean, it was funny, the Army just knows how they'll figure out a way to screw you over. Like, there's no getting around it. I know that. Steve knows that. Anybody who served, like, you're not going to beat the system. And this guy certainly couldn't either.
House always wins.
So he goes to his primary school. He's a radio operator. Okay. So he goes to radio school in Sioux City, Iowa, in the winter. Yeah. Okay. It takes all winter to get through radio operator school. Then he has to go to gunnery, because, like either a 24 or a B-17, these guys got to be able to shoot these 50 cals. So he's got to go to gunnery school. It's late spring when he's done with radio operator school. So guess where he goes to gunnery school in the middle of the summer?
Florida?
Yuma, Arizona. Yuma, Arizona. So he's like, 12 degrees below zero to 120 in the shade.
No AC to be found.
After gunnery school, then he's got to go back for, I think it was like crew training. Well, instead of going to Sioux City, Iowa, he goes to Sioux Falls, Iowa for the following winter, where it's 1,000,000 degrees below zero. So it's just like this you just kind of get those candid, sometimes the stuff you don't always hear about, but the stuff for like reenactors is just gold,
Mm-hmm.
because that's all part of the guy's story. And he was on, and you can see, for people that are streaming now, you can see this is his crew of a B-17. There's 7 guys, because at this time later on in the war, it wasn't a full 10 crew, so you've got a pilot, co-pilot, navigator, and then your gunners, but didn't always have a ball turret gunner, because of the Mickey unit that they replaced the ball turret, the big radar dome. They would sometimes have a command officer or a command pilot. There would be an extra guy in the radio room with him, sometimes throwing the metal chafe to throw off the German radar. There'd be just some E6 that was like, hey, you're the toggler today. So they don't have a bombardier. They've got a different toggler. So kind of interesting, to see how we really had to evolve and really learn as we were fighting that war, how to better bomb, how to bomb more accurately, and how to, try to keep the cost down. But at the end of the book, it's really interesting, talking about his the trip over to one of the cities in Czechoslovakia where they got nailed by Me-262s. That was interesting reading about that, for sure.
I'll have to check that one out. As I've been saying, I need to start catching up on my Army Air Corps stuff, and so I'll have to have you guys suggest some reading material. How about you, Henry? What have you been reading lately?
Well, I just finished McManus's Americans at D-Day, like I said, and then my plan had been to jump on in, and because I've got the Americans at Normandy, which was his companion volume. I was going to tackle that next, but then I started reading Crucible of Hell by Saul David. I heard about this book from Paul on World War II TV, which, as you guys know, I was on Friday night or Friday afternoon. But Saul, I found out, has just written a book on K-35, which of course was my dad's unit in World War II. So Richard Frank suggested to Saul that I read the manuscript, and Saul wanted me to, so I did. So I just finished that, and then Saul asked me to write the foreword for it. So I got that done and sent back to him.
Wow.
In the meantime, I thought, well, I probably should read Crucible of Hell, because, I really wanted to become more intimately familiar with his writing style. So I'm probably 150 pages into this, and then my next book, I'm honestly thinking about picking up I've got it on my shelf. I'm thinking about grabbing it and reading the Black Cross Red Star. It's a book on the air war in the Eastern Front that
Nice.
I read it, 10 or 12 years ago, but I'm thinking about rereading that. So, we'll see what happens there, but I should have Crucible of Hell finished in the next few days.
Are you guys kind of like me, where if you read a book on a certain campaign, you try to stay there for a book or two before transitioning, or do you just fly up and down the gambit?
I like, Steve said, as it gets cooler, Jeff, I've heard you say it. I've heard you say it too. We're all in the same boat. As it gets cooler, I start thinking ETO more and more.
Mm-hmm.
I just started watching Band of Brothers again, because we're going to be in New Orleans in January for the 20th symposium on that. So I'm really, we've been talking about airborne stuff, but, usually I'll kind of stay in a groove there, and then as it warms up, I'll start thinking more PTO stuff.
How about you, Stephen? What have you been reading lately?
So unfortunately, I don't read too many firsthand accounts or stories. Currently, I'm deep into the M1 Helmet book. I can grab it because I can't remember the author's name. But reading the M1 Helmet, the World War II GI by Peter Osterman. He lives in Carentan, France. I got to meet him.
Nice.
Are you familiar with Jay Murray?
I had him on. He was one of my first guests. I think if you go back to episode 8 or 9, I had him on, and he gave me a pretty good, off the top of his head, background of the compression helmets and how to identify them and the whole 9 yards on that. And that's, if you guys are new to the show, and if you haven't gone back and listened to that episode, tune in and check out that Jay Murray episode. But go ahead.
Yeah, definitely. So Peter right here, he was the one that actually got Jay Murray started. He helped him out a lot, and a lot of the helmets that are in here is what Jay Murray was modeling his equipment after. So, a lot of the original parts that he was using all came from France. So, and
wow.
And so I actually got a chance to, during the 75th anniversary, I was in Carentan, and I got the chance to talk to Peter. He even signed the book, really, really nice of him. But I just kept talking to him about, helmets and World War II stuff. He actually closed up his whole shop for me and just took me into like his attic and just showed me this massive collection of stuff that was left over after World War II, like just D-Day items, post D-Day, like everything was there. Like I saw weapons, parachutes, flight belts, preservers, parts of vehicles.
Wow.
But this helmet right here, though, like if you're definitely collecting like helmets that haven't been restored or just all original, and just how to identify things, this is a really good look to have, so that way you can identify, and also you learn a little bit of the history of like why they use certain materials, why they went away from certain materials. So
isn't it interesting how a hunk of metal with some chin straps can hold your imagination? I'm the same way. I'm looking in my studio right now. I got six helmets in this room right now. And that's why I had Jay Murray on. I'm like, I can't explain to people what it is about the M1 helmet, because that's how I got started in this hobby. And, as the time has gone by, every time I find myself a new front seam, I just sell one of my rear seams on eBay to get rid of them. And within the last year, I've gotten a original front seam D-Bell helmet that has the original paint. Some point in its life, it was a range helmet, because you can see where underneath the paint strokes on some of the paint bleed, you can still see the yellow paint. I have my Hollywood Holly liner in it. That's the plastic ones. I just put that one in there. And then this weekend, I premiered my recently restored. I had to paint over the 5 or 6 logos, but in the photos I post on Instagram, that's a D-Bell front seam rear helmet that was restored. And but I'm the same. I don't know what it is about the damn M1 helmet. I want to know everything about them. It's just one of those things that people are like, it's a helmet. Who cares? I'm just one of those guys in an M1 helmet camp. I can't explain it.
No, I'm right there with you. I always wanted an M1 helmet, especially when I started off, with reenacting. I had to start with a post-war helmet, but when I finally got my first World War II GI helmet, that was an exciting day for me. That and an M1 Garand belt. Mm-hmm. That, I thought it was the coolest belt in the world.
My buddy Jerry had the fortune to take advantage of someone else's misfortune. He found a local museum that was going out, and he basically bought their entire M1 helmet collection, and he's got the one to flip up ears and all that. And I asked him, I said, well, do you have a correspondence helmet, i.e. the photographer helmet? Are you familiar with those, Jeff or Henry?
I am not, no.
Steven, I'm sure you're familiar with the photography helmet. It's the one that kind of looks like a medieval knight helmet. They actually cut the front visor off and then re-rivet it on there so you can flip it up so you can hold the camera up to your face, and the visor does not push the camera away. So the visor actually has been cut off and then riveted back on, so it flips up, so you don't have to take your helmet off to hold your camera up to your face. And they're very rare, but if you go online, you can see how they weren't done at the factory because every one of them's cut a different way. But it kind of reminds you of that old knight visor that flips up on the helmet. They're pretty cool, and I would love to see one of those in real life. But that's one of the real super rare ones that they made for the journalists and the photographers.
Wow. That sounds like a field mod. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like you do a quick image search and you'll see 4 of them, and none of them are exactly the same. So they're pretty cool. But Henry, you kind of brought Band of Brothers up, and I sent you guys a picture, so I'm going to just get into it. I'm going to call this the WTSP movie review. And one of the ongoing jokes with me and Jeff and Henry is that Henry liked the Thin Red Line, and Jeff and I not so much.
Oh man, we're gonna talk about it again.
And well,
I didn't bring it up.
Well,
he brought it up.
I brought it up because I want to be fair, and I said that if I could find it for free, I would watch it again. And lo and behold, it's on Roku TV for free. And I will say, the first time I saw it was in the late 90s, early 2000s, when I really didn't know anything about World War II. I just liked war movies. A Band of Brothers hadn't even been out yet, because that movie came out in 97, 98. And I found it somewhere.
98.
I found it at one of those family-owned movie stores on video. I bought it, watched it, and I wasn't a fan. And I don't think I'd seen it since then. But now that I know a little bit about Guadalcanal and the PTO, I rewatched it. I'm still not saying it was a stellar movie, but I will say I appreciate it a lot more after the second viewing. I want to ask Jeff, when was the last time you seen it?
I don't remember. It's so forgettable. I have seen it twice. I have seen it twice. I saw it when it first came out because I was super pumped because after seeing Saving Private Ryan in theaters, and I was like, I don't know, 13 or 14 years old. So, but I was a huge, like, Pacific War buff. I mean, it was B-17s, and then the Pacific. So after Saving Private Ryan, I was like, okay, they got to make a movie like this, but in the Pacific. And that's what I thought the Thin Red Line was going to be.
Well, I was right there with you. I mean,
yeah. And Guadalcanal was like my thing. And that was the one island that I knew more about as a young high school kid than any other campaign in World War II. So it was like win-win. And then I watched, and I'll admit, so the first time I saw it, I knew like it was over my head was the problem. So I saw it again, and I want to say I was in the Army when I watched it again. So that's been 20 years ago, somewhere in there. So it was equally as disappointing the second time.
I think one of the downfalls of that movie is and Henry might agree with this, it's kind of a movie for people who know about Guadalcanal, because there's a lot of stuff they're showing that they weren't explaining with narration. And so if you don't, like, for example, when they're on the ship after Sean Penn, finds the homeboy who was camping out with the natives and trying to go AWOL, and they're down in the ship, and they're showing the guys talking and all this and that, and all of a sudden they show the guys pounding on the door screaming, "Let me out of here," and they make no reference to it. They didn't say, well, the Navy had a policy of not letting us up on top when we're in dangerous areas. And there's a lot of things that are just jumping back and forth that the narration or anything didn't even discuss, which were the things that kind of confused me the first time I saw it. I didn't understand. This movie opens up and he's hanging out on a beach with a bunch of natives, and what the hell is that all about?
Really?
And one of my things I did enjoy about the fact is they showed the native scouts, and one of them looked just like Vuzo, but with a beard. And I really enjoyed that. I will say, it is lacking on the action at first, but I don't hate it as much as I used to. I enjoyed it now that I know about Guadalcanal. I still won't say it's one of my favorite World War II movies, but I will say I've been unreasonably hard on it. And I did enjoy it.
I won't say it's one of my favorites.
Yeah.
But the thing, I mean, like you, Jeff, I have a penchant for Guadalcanal, and I mean, a lot of it was filmed on Guadalcanal.
See, I think maybe the problem is that I stopped listening to Don when he said Sean Penn. Everything after that, I haven't heard. I didn't hear a word.
He said the same thing about A Midnight Clear when I said Ethan Hawke.
No, absolutely.
And there's who I saw in there, and I could be wrong because, of course, this was 5 years before Band of Brothers, but it looked like the actor who played Joe Toy, I think, was a background actor in that. He was
Acevedo. Yeah, he was on
screen for like 6 or 7.
Tell me nothing.
Yeah, he was on there.
That was him, yes.
Yep. And there was a lot of young cats on there. I think the other kind of thing, and I get where they were going, and obviously the only part of the remake was the title. I guess the movie itself had nothing to do with the original one. Who the hell played the commander? Anyhow.
Nick Nolte?
Nick Nolte. His character at some point seemed a little unnecessarily harsh. It was like they're just trying to make him the world's biggest dick.
God damn you, Staros!
But, all in all, I definitely have to say it's better than I remember it because, once again, it's clearly a movie about Guadalcanal that was intended for people who knew about Guadalcanal. And some of the battle scenes of itself were pretty damn good. And it's worth a watch if you have Roku. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying pay to watch it, but if you want to watch it for free. Yeah. Steve, have you ever seen it? I want to include you in this conversation. Have you seen Thin Red Line?
I'm not a big fan of The Thin Red Line, even though I do think it's George Clooney's finest film that he's ever starred in. But I think the storytelling could have been done a little bit better. Yes, the action scenes were great, the uniforms, all that other crap. But I got lost in the fact that the story wasn't really told in a way that, because I don't know that much about Guadalcanal. Yes, I know it's an island. People fought on it. Yes. But I don't know the true ins and outs. Yes, I do know some of the nerd stuff about, like, the little nuances and everything. But the storytelling wasn't the greatest. And I think that if they would have done it a lot better, I think I would have liked it more.
Yeah, it's like they left the storytelling to the characters in first person, and when Nick Nolte was doing his voiceover work, it was all growly. You could barely understand him, and some of the other, like the cat who was hanging out with the natives. It's like I kind of felt like he only got the role in a movie because he won an award for Pay It Forward with the little cat from Sixth Sense. It's like I kind of feel like that's why he was in there, but it had a huge cast. Going back and rewatching it now, it's like they had just about every damn person in Hollywood on that movie.
Well, absolutely. I think you said it best. If they're going to go in with the idea of making a movie for people, for their audience that knows already about Guadalcanal, they made that movie for 10 people.
Yeah. The weird thing is it got nominated for all kind of awards.
If you're going to make a movie like, hey, we're going after the audience that knows about this campaign. Okay, great.
It's a very niche market.
Yeah.
I was going to say, then don't release it in theaters.
The movie that I have not changed my opinion on, which is also on Roku for free, is Wind Talkers, and I only made it through about 15 minutes of that. And I just had to play it in the background while I'm doing computer repair. And there's just, I mean, I know we don't like to nitpick on uniforms, but when you got a close-up of freaking Homeboy's foot and his boondockers have like modern-day construction worker treads on, it's like, yeah. But yeah, just
I feel bad for Adam Beach. Because I do like him as an actor. I feel bad for him being in that movie.
Guys, let me ask this question because I never saw Wind Talkers.
Okay.
Or Windbreakers, as I know you guys call it. What about it was so bad?
The acting. Nicolas Cage is acting. There's an opening scene where Nicolas Cage is having a flashback to when his whole platoon got wiped out. And the acting of the guys is just...
Okay.
It's bad.
I'll very simple. Henry, have you ever seen an episode of The A-Team?
Yeah.
That's it in a nutshell. They have unlimited ammunition, no magazine changes, and they don't hit anything.
I will say the opening scene when they land on Saipan, they spent a shit ton of money on a pyrotechnic and filming that one scene. Like that scene is where half of the movie's budget is, and it's actually.
I will say this: that my predecessor in my last museum job was an advisor for that film. So, and he's the one who really
who was that, Jeff? Who was that?
Well, I don't know if I want to mention the name, but he
you're talking about at the Nimitz?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, don't say the name then. I knew some people out there because I did take some of my dad's stuff out there about 20 years ago. Not all of it, but a few things.
Yeah.
And absolutely. I met a guy out there. It was just funny because that guy didn't make a very good impression on my wife.
Okay, well, we'll leave that there. But so even after seeing it, then to hear from like his perspective, what he tried to convince them to do or to fix or to not do. And Henry, you've been there. And so then you go back and like you look for the ridiculousness, then it really ruins it for you.
Yeah.
And then my son, I guess he's 15 now, so he was probably, I don't know, 10, 11, 12, somewhere in there. He's like, hey, Dad, I saw the shadow of a helicopter watching Wind Talker, the camera bird. Like, no way. And then he pointed out, like, yeah, sure enough, that's a helicopter.
I may have to watch it just to see that.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome.
Jeff, I do blame that on you, though. You've ruined him. You've ruined war movies for him because all the nitpicking we do on uniforms and everything else, we've ruined him for life.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's the burden we all have to, that's the cross we all have to bear as living historians. And, when it comes to our own groups, we're not quite Stitch Nazis, but when it comes to damn war movies, we're after that's not the right button. Oh, yeah, I was going to say, if you watch that movie in the mind state of like you're doing your own version of Mystery Science Theater 3000, where you're prepared for watching a bad movie and you're intending on cracking on it, give it a run. And it's sad too, because that is a subject matter that really needed more light shined on it, the code talkers and all that. But just having Nicolas Cage as the leading man, followed up by Christian Slater, it was just The casting was just a bad run.
Yeah.
The cat who played the main Native American from Joe Dirt, he did a good job. The
Adam Beach. That's what I'm talking about. He's in Flags of Our Fathers. He played Ira Hayes.
Yeah, and the ensemble Native Americans did really good.
He's a great actor. I feel bad that is on his resume.
If him and his ensemble cast would have carried that without Christian Slater and Nicolas Cage, if they would have just put some no names in there, it would have been, and some no name better actors.
It's John Woo though.
Yeah, it's
a John Woo film.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter who's acting.
Yeah, I was gonna say and a different director, but yeah, I don't know. It's a damn shame, really. It really is.
Well, before we go, I'll go ahead and put in a shameless plug since we're on movies. This coming weekend, happy Veterans Day, everybody, to all those who served. We're almost to that time of year when guys like us just want to hide for the day, and it is what it is. But Walking Point, we've mentioned that movie maybe once or twice on What's the Scuttlebutt. Walking Point is going to be there's a film festival in Franklin, Tennessee this coming weekend, and some of the lead cast is going to be up there for that film fest. So we're really excited about that. Hopefully we can bring home an award or two from that film festival as we're kind of wrapping up. I think there's maybe only one more after that, and then we're going to, I guess, do whatever the executive producer and director want to do with it after that. But I can't wait. Obviously I know Don has seen the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I really can't wait for Henry to critique it. I'm looking forward.
It's still on Amazon Video, right? It's still up on Amazon, ain't it?
Yes, it's still on Amazon Prime. Yeah,
Jeff, and you sent me, and I am going to watch that, but you sent me, I think, a link to it or something.
Yeah, I sure did. Yeah, and I know you're not real savvy with that stuff either, so I've sent a pigeon. He is on his way.
Or you can just go ask your son to help you. He is 15. He'll be able to put up 30 seconds.
My son's 13, man.
Even better. The younger they are, the quicker they are.
Daddy, I got this. Just let me do it.
If you have a 3-year-old niece, they probably get it up even faster than the 13-year-old. The young cats are really good at that. And for those Marines listening, active and or retired, even though I'm a civilian, I have no right to say this, but to give credit where credit's due, 2 days from now will be the Marine Corps' birthday, November 10th. So happy birthday for those of you in the Marine Corps who are going to be celebrating that.
Yeah. But, happy birthday. All that Semper Fi stuff.
Henry, you have a busier schedule than anybody else. You've hit the ground running with your desire to get back into the World War II community. So with that being said, do you have anything you need to plug? You usually got a grocery list of things you need to get out there.
Not really. Did the Paul Woodadge's World War II TV Friday. So that's up on YouTube. And
we'll put that up on our site too, so you guys can find it.
Yeah, that seemed to be pretty well received. I think Leighton and I have been talking. There's another We Happy Few 506 coming up probably in a month or so. I think the focus of that one is going to be back on the Pacific and probably Peleliu.
I was watching, not to cut you off, but just on that topic of his podcast, I was watching one of the earlier ones he did where he had the guy who played Blythe and Sergeant Martin, but I had it on in my shop, and so I didn't see the intro. And I'm watching, I'm like, who's the cat with the gray hair and the ascot and the super small glass? And then I realized, holy shit, that's Johnny Martin. He looks so different now because he has like the Einstein look going. He had an ascot on and like round glasses. It took me like 10 minutes to figure out who he was. Like, holy hell.
They just did an episode this past weekend, which my wife and I were busy doing stuff. I didn't watch it, but they were doing, it was back on Band of Brothers and they were doing replacements. I think that was the episode that they were focusing on for that run of We Happy Few 506. And Leighton sent me a link to it, but I haven't watched it yet. But yeah, that's chugging on along.
The actor who played Blythe said that, they didn't include him in the boot camp to make him kind of feel isolated to help develop that character. But he was saying he was happy because he honestly said if they would have made me do the boot camp, he said, I am so, back then at least, and probably even now, he said, I'm such a puss that he said I probably wouldn't have gotten sued because I probably wouldn't have walked off the set because I wouldn't have been able to handle the physical requirements of doing the boot camp. So I was a little surprised to hear that, but yeah, he and on that episode they also had the cat who played The guy, who hung out with Nixon and Winters. The one who was keeping his parachute for his wife, for Kitty.
Yeah, I'm hearing a lot of rumblings. Sergeant Welch, or wasn't it Lieutenant Welch?
Yes, he was on that too.
But the actor, I can't remember his name, but I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
Very well. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a pretty, and it was basically one of his. It was one of their teaser episodes. So it wasn't the full episode. It was kind of like, here's the open one. Here's what our show's about. You want to see the full version? Go to our website. But yeah, it was good, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. How about you, Steve? You got anything coming up? You got for people out in your area who might be interested in joining up with your jump crew or anything? You got any plugs or websites you want to get out there?
Well, no. I do always want to throw out the World War II ADT. Don, I suggest come on out, join up, come jump with us. It's a full World War II experience over a lot of the other groups that are out there. I really can't say any more about the groups that are out there because I just don't, it's not my job to talk about that.
Yeah, that's why I didn't bring up any names.
Come on out, come sign out, jump with us. I mean, there's guys out there that are old enough to be my dad in their 70s that are out there jumping, still doing it with us, keeping, the spirit alive of World War II, remembering everyone. And, and it's not just, 101st, 82nd. We got guys out there doing paramarine. You name it, it's out there. So, and we just got a bunch of guys that are doing Canadians. We have the French that come out here and jump with us. So they do all the French commando and insurgency, the Jet Birds. So, I mean,
that was
every expression that's airborne wise, it's out there. And then, of course, too, Mr. Sledge, I would invite you out there. Our Marine contingent, that would absolutely have a million questions to ask you, of course.
That sounds pretty cool, but I'm too old for that.
Well, then you don't have to come jump. We'll just, you just drive around in the Jeeps with us and just go terrassing around on the drop zone.
That would be cool, but where physically is this located now? Sorry, Don. I know you're about to ask something.
It's in Frederick, Oklahoma.
Oh, Oklahoma.
Okay.
I've been thinking we need to figure out logistic-wise. The three of us need to figure out a way to meet up in person one day, and that would be really goddamn cool because I haven't seen Jeff in a minute. And
y'all could just come to my air show in March. Just saying.
One may make the argument that Henry and I are geographically closer to each other, so it'd be more advantageous for you to come our way.
I hear what you're saying, Don, but if there are going to be a lot of warbirds at this air show, that could be pretty cool.
Yeah. When is that air show again, Jeff? Get that plug in there.
The 19th of March, 2022. It's the 30th annual Bluebonnet Air Show in Burnett, Texas, here at the museum, the Highland Lakes Air Museum, that you hear me talk a lot about. Our own little company B will be out there doing weapon demonstrations. I'm hoping Steve will be out there again. He's got a few toys that I like to blow some brass through. I'm working on one World War II vet, but there should be at least one other one. Of course, this is 5 months away. So you never know. Logistics are a little too early to get to really firm that up. But last year we had a couple, not that this has to do with World War II, but we had the two A-10 Warthogs, the A-10 demonstration team came out to the air show last year, kind of finished everything off for us, it really is a crowd pleaser. If you've never seen an A-10, I mean, it's a cool part of the air show. Besides the fact of having the B-25s, the C-47s, and usually a P-51. Sometimes some of the tour birds will come through.
They have any Corsairs?
It's hit or miss with those Corsairs. Yeah. That's the kind of stuff you probably need to go to Wings Over Dallas for. They've got a lot more birds flying. That's always usually the last weekend of October. That just happened, over Halloween.
I think the Stewart Air Show.
Air Show.
Yeah, they had them. I think 2 years ago. But like Jeff said, there's so few flight, that are capable of flight that they're hit or miss. Like even the Stewart Air Show doesn't have them every year. It's like, oh, we got them this one time, and who knows the next time.
And I worked the living history part of the Wings Over Dallas since 2016. And that's just kind of really taken a backseat for me. And it sounds like they've it's not what it used to be, like anything else in the reenacting world. But one of the things that we will have at Burnett that they used to have at Wings Over the House is a good friend of mine, Denny Hare, who is recognized by the United States Army as the General Patton reenactor for the United States Army. Has traveled the world speaking as General Patton, has written a 6-volume set of books about Patton's command just during the Third Army days, is very close with the family. The family comes to him for questions about their grandpa or great grandpa. So he comes out again. He's another crowd pleaser. He kind of he sets the tone, gets everybody excited, does his, grease in the tank treads with their gut speech. And of course there to just take pictures. So, I mean, it's an air show in Texas in March when things couldn't be prettier around here in this neck of the woods, in the hill country with the bluebonnets in full bloom, and it's not 100 degrees. So it's a really fun time. I look forward to it every year. Now is that a
weekend gig, or is that one of those things that starts like on a Thursday and goes through to Sunday? How many days is it?
It's a one-day event. It's just Saturday.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to maybe figure something out. Because I'd love to get back out to Texas again. It's been too long.
I think it'd be cool. Yeah.
Yep. Make it happen. Well, guys, I think that is going to just about wrap it up for this episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us. Thank you, Steven, for hanging out with us and giving us a little background on what you do. And, it's always interesting to talk to somebody who actually jumps out of those bad boys and has such a passion and a wealth of knowledge. Oh, not a problem. My pleasure. And thanks to Jeff for booking you on the show. And I'd be remiss to say or not say that this episode of the What's the Scuttlebutt podcast has been brought to you by our friends at At Computers. At Computers has been providing IT solutions all of Southwest Florida since 2004, and the rest of the world since remote login has become a necessity. And so even if you don't live in Southwest Florida and you have some minor computer problems, network problems, they can help you. Give them a call at 239-283-1120 or hit them up at their website, act-capecoral.com. And please, while you're on the internet, head over to YouTube and like and subscribe to our channel. We have exceeded 500. Now we're working on that long hell highway to 1,000 subscribers. And as always, if you want to be a member of the OG5, as we were kind of joking around on before we went live, please head over to WTSPWorldWar2.com, or you can just go to Patreon.com and search for Digital 410. Sign up. It's $1 a month. There's a plan for $3.50 a month and $7.50 a month as well. If you do the $7.50 a month plan, you do get a free t-shirt after your second month. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with us, and we will talk to you shortly.
This has been a Digital 410 production.